Mediation is always a cost savings for the parties. The way that we do the program is we try to get people in pre-litigation before they actually have spent all of this money, hated each other, been before the judge, spent a ton of time, everybody's angry. We really want to get people before they go in. And I'm going to tell you one of my favorite quotes of all time, and it's attributed to George Washington, a hero of this country. And I don't even know if the quote is his, but it's a brilliant quote. The quote is, "A wise man learns from his own mistakes, but true wisdom is learning from the mistakes of others." And we really don't need to spend all that money and have all that hardship to realize how terrible it is. Litigation is horrible for the family law. It is the only system we have. We are in an adversarial system. It is just the way our court system works. But quite frankly, it doesn't belong there. It really doesn't. It doesn't make anybody happy. Nobody walks away thinking, oh, that was great. It's never great. It never is. People might be satisfied with an outcome. People might think the judge is good or bad, but it doesn't matter. What you need to do is resolve all these disputes by basically sitting in a room and taking control over these important factors in your life. It is the only proper way to get it done. And there never will be 100%. This was an awesome experience because, let's face it, the experience of dissolving of a relationship and untangling the relationship and unmarrying the people, it is a horrible experience. Nobody goes into these relationships thinking, oh, one day, maybe 5 years, 20 years, 10 years from now, I'm going to have to sit there in front of a lawyer and get very embarrassed about certain things, or how much money I spent on shoes, or how much money I spent on whatever, or the fact that I lost my job. Nobody wants to relive that. And the court, quite frankly, doesn't care. The court is not going to do anything about it. It's all going to be very scientific with the court. So things that are important to you that you can address with just one single person in that room makes the most sense of all. The difference with litigation is, no matter what the dispute is, it's in an open public courtroom. No matter what the dispute is, there's tons of paperwork and hours of the attorney's time that goes into presenting it before a judge who in all likelihood will not care whether or not the kids get dropped home between 9 or 8:30 at night, or will not care that maybe my parents gave the down payment for the home, or will not care that my spouse spent all this money on golf, why I had to work 1,000,000 hours. Nobody's going to care about that. Nobody's going to make that right. So why do it? Why jump through that? And why sign up for that when you have an ability to go into this process on your own, take control, and say, this is what's important to me. Let me get out of this. Let me untangle this. The judge doesn't need to decide everything. So in seeing how complicated the process is, where you take control and where you save money is by getting involved in the process from the beginning of the process, realizing that you're going in there to be reasonable, understanding what the law is going to provide for you anyway, and just going from point A to point B in a straight line and be done with it. You will save a ton of money and a ton of time. You can move on with your life. I have an expression in my practice where I say to the parties, look, what's your price of peace? What's your price to make this over? How much does it cost you to not have any more, or how much would you be willing to pay to not have any more sleepless nights, to not have to meet with me on a weekend, to go through papers and documents, and to not have to deal with the stress of going through this for an uncertain and unknown result? Because you don't know what a judge is going to think. Just because you think it's right doesn't mean the judge is going to think you're right. The judge is going to do what the judge does. The political appointment is going to do what the political appointment thinks is right that day. It will absolutely save you money and time in order to keep this in the mediation process. Get it done. Mediation will absolutely be a cleaner and faster result for parties. First of all, you get one-on-one with the mediator, and we're going literally right from the dispute and the nature of the dispute to how are we going to resolve that dispute by drafting a document, a memo of understanding or property settlement agreement. We're going to go right from point A to point B and address all of those issues right out of the box. When you go into litigation, there's mandatory disclosures of things that you have to do. There's financial documents and forms that have to be done. There's interrogatories, notices to produce, depositions. And I say this all the time in my practice too. Just tell me, just give it to me. Why are you going to make me subpoena a document that you can just give to me? But the whole purpose of mediation is to get that done. And we also will need the parties to participate, because if there is a question that maybe one of the parties took some money and put it somewhere, I need that party to participate and prove to me they didn't. I need that party to produce stuff. So if you're going into mediation thinking that you're going to go in because you're going to try to take advantage of the other party, better not come to our program. Our program is not designed that way. We will 100% make sure that that doesn't happen. We want to make sure that the parties will be satisfied, that they have full disclosure of everything. Remember, the whole part of it is you're making intelligent decisions. I can't make intelligent decisions without information. So not only do you have to take part in it, but you have to disclose things. Without having to deal with all of the mandatory dates and all the mandatory things that we have to do, which as of right now takes a year just to get through the system before we even start scheduling intensive settlement dates, before we even start scheduling mandatory mediation, before we even start scheduling trials. So because we don't have to do that, we can go right from the parties' dispute to how are we going to end the parties' dispute, and how are we going to get this done? How are we going to resolve it for the parties without having to do all of the mandatory appearances in the courthouse, without having to do a trial? Now, I want everybody to understand what a trial looks like in the family court, because what a trial looks like is not even close to what we see on TV. It's you maybe get an hour of the judge's time on the judge's schedules. If you're lucky, you get a whole morning or a whole afternoon, if you're lucky. And then the judge is going to get interrupted because there's going to be an emergent matter before the judge, or there's going to be a snowstorm or a rainstorm, or somebody's late, or the judge's clerk isn't there, or the equipment isn't working. So something's going to happen. So maybe my whole morning of what I think is going to be 3.5 to 4 hours is going to be whittled down to 15 minutes. If I have 4 days of testimony, that 15 minutes that I'm doing is going to be maybe over the course of yet another year. And each time I go to court as the litigator, I have to re-prep, and I have to order transcripts, and I have to make sure everything is done. So it's so much less time consuming. By the way, when you're done your trial, the judge doesn't rule from the bench and say, oh, you were a very, very bad spouse, I'm going to punish you. The judge could take 6 months to a year just to write the decision. After the judge takes the 6 months to write the decision, maybe there's an appeal. How many years are we going to keep litigating? How much money are we going to keep spending? No matter which way you cut it, mediation is a much safer, faster, and less expensive alternative. Mediation will reduce the emotional stress of going through litigation for a number of reasons. First of all, it's private. It's not in an open public courtroom. Second of all, you don't have to worry about maybe your spouse saying horrible things about you, or your significant other who you once loved and trusted now revealing all of your personal intimate secrets. It doesn't have to be that way. Nobody has to do that. And you're not getting back at anybody by revealing those things in the courtroom also. Oftentimes we have people in a courtroom that have an agenda. They don't necessarily want to get done. They really want to hurt the other side. You never get satisfaction when you do that. It just ends up costing a ton of money. The judges don't care. If you feel like you're gonna, be better somehow in your universe because you're able to insult somebody in a public space, then you probably shouldn't have been in that relationship anyway. There's no getting back at anybody through this process. Emotionally, it is difficult. It is always difficult to end a relationship, especially a relationship that is going to be interwound with other things that we have to deal with, which is basically what I call the business of family law, the business of the parties' relationship, the homes, the children, the investments, the cars, the timeshares, whatever it is. That's the business of it. We really want to handle the business of it. The emotional part of it, to the extent that you can get through that business side of it, and it's not lingering and being brought up again and again and again every time we have to go back to court, the quicker you move on, the better you are. In my practice, I call it the price of peace. And that's what we're really striving to do in mediation, is to help people move on faster, because the longer it lives on, the longer it hangs over your head, the stress on that is enormous. There's no money we can put on that, and you can never get that time back. No matter what you do, we cannot replace time. So the faster you're able to move on, the faster you're able to resolve your issues and just say, let's go. Next, what's my next chapter in my life? The better off you will be. There is no doubt about it. In mediation, we will maintain your privacy. All of our mediators are lawyers or retired judges who were lawyers, so they certainly understand privacy. Even though we don't share an attorney-client privilege, so to speak, our mediators are under the statutory law for mediation, and in that, everything is private. Nothing is going to be shared. Everything will be totally within the control of the mediator and the two parties that are involved. What happens in mediation stays in mediation. It doesn't leave mediation. And because our mediators are all lawyers, they certainly understand attorney-client privilege and mediation privilege better than anybody else. If you have any questions about the benefits of mediation, please feel free to take a look at any of the videos we have online, give us a call, check out our website, or email us.